Story 1. The Weird Old Man. As the sun climbed over the horizon, my girlfriend Anna and I eagerly dragged out our old knickknacks and furniture for the yard sale. We'd moved in last spring and had been meaning to clear out the garage since. It was our first time doing this, and we were both looking forward to the chance to declutter. The neighborhood seemed to come alive slowly, with neighbors giving us cheerful waves and popping by for a quick chat as they browsed. I found it surprisingly pleasant, even as a few local kids zipped between the tables, giggling at our outdated lampshades and peculiar artifacts. Around noon, things took a rather peculiar turn. Most visitors poked around and moved on, but one elderly man, perhaps in his late 60s, dressed in a faded windbreaker and a nondescript baseball cap, lingered longer than most. Initially, he seemed pleasant enough, asking numerous questions about the less than desirable items. There was something off-kilter about his curiosity. We just chalked it up to him being eccentric or perhaps old-fashioned. Anna thought he was harmless. After all, it's not unusual for older folks to reminisce over dated devices like the rusted alarm clock he kept turning over in his hands. Even as the foot traffic dwindled, the old man stayed. I remember Anna whispering, "He's just lonely," to reassure me when I noticed him still hovering near the driveway. His presence turned from endearing to discomforting when he started mumbling about how familiar the place felt and how different it was now. Throughout the afternoon, despite our attempts to politely engage and distract him, his focus seemed less on buying anything and more on the essence of the house itself. He'd touch the posts of the porch, pausing as if remembering some forgotten detail from the past. By the time we began packing up what little remained around 4 p.m., the feeling in my gut shifted from curious to concerned. He paced slowly across the street, standing just out of our immediate reach, but not out of our sight. When everyone else had left, he remained a pronounced figure against the backdrop of the setting sun, standing there, watching. Anna insisted it was innocent, uneasy only because of the quirks of aging, but even she had to admit that seeing him across the street that persistently felt like a breach of our bubble of normalcy. As dusk began to settle, our doorbell rang, startling us both. There he was again, standing as if he belonged, with a broad, friendly smile taut on his lips. Any remaining notion that he was just another garage sale visitor evaporated when he volunteered that he used to live in our house, back when the basement was still unfinished. We exchanged polite but tense smiles, murmuring about our recent move and renovations. He asked about a hatch under the back stairs, staring at us with an unnerving intensity that lingered even after Anna, with an awkward laugh, confessed we weren't aware of any such thing. The air thickened with awkwardness until he finally took his leave, not towards a car or any discernible destination, just down the sidewalk, vanishing into the embrace of dusk as silently as he had stood before us. The encounter sat heavy with us, and as curiosity gnawed at my senses, I decided to have a look. Underneath the carpeted stairs leading to the backyard, there was indeed a wooden board, slightly loose at one end. Prizing it open, I was greeted by an unsettling sight. A dusty crawl space, with remnants of old bedding as if someone had once sought refuge or rest here. We reached out to our landlord, a conversation that ushered in heavy silence on their end. Apparently, a previous occupant with a questionable past, a history of instability, had lived there years ago. There was no record with police, nothing concrete, just hearsay and unsettling implications. We shrugged it off as best we could, Yet the scene of dusty bedding lingered in my mind, an unwelcome anchor in our otherwise mundane lives. We'd offered the explanation to rationalize our discomfort, though reason alone couldn't dispel the haunting chill that had settled in. The following weekend, one of our neighbors casually mentioned in passing, "In that way, suburban conversation sometimes drifts toward the macabre," that they'd seen the old man again, loitering at the end of our driveway early in the morning. I paused, a parade of unease marching down my spine. Since then, I've found myself drawing the blinds more often, the eyes within our walls keenly attuned to unseen movements outside. We haven't seen him again, or at least I've been trying to convince myself of that. No tangible proof lingers, just the unnerving silence of uncertainty that surrounds each shadowed corner and unbidden creak. We don't feel alone anymore, and perhaps that's the worst part of it all. Story 2: The Secret Box. The yard sale had started as a quiet, almost therapeutic affair. I had spent days sorting through my late grandmother's attic, each box bringing back memories as well as the faint scent of mothballs and must. Gently, I arranged items in my front yard: old books with dog-eared pages, lamps with their bulbs long burnt out, faded picture frames, chipped kitchenware. It wasn't much, but it was enough to draw a curious passerby or two, mostly neighbors stopping for a chat more than with purchasing intent. Maybe it was the calm morning that lulled me, or the mundane exchange of pleasantries that made me feel at ease. Little did I know this would change with the arrival of an unexpected visitor. Mid-morning, a man approached. He seemed out of place in the neighborhood, middle-aged with a casual demeanor, overly friendly, almost rehearsed. I watched as he zeroed in on the older items, his eyes lighting up with each question about their origin. He delved into details, far more than any other visitor cared to inquire about. I answered vaguely, kept the conversation light. "Just family stuff," I said, hoping to turn the interaction around quickly. Then he asked about an old jewelry box, described it perfectly: a rosewood finish, a small brass latch at the front. I froze for a moment. That box wasn't among the sale items. It was tucked safely in a closet inside the house, a treasured keepsake of my grandmother's. I assured him I had nothing like that for sale, hoping to close the door on the conversation. But his strange smile lingered, as he just said, "Are you sure?" I could have sworn I saw it here once. At that moment, a chill crept across my skin. How could he know about something that private, that personal? I forced a polite laugh, uneasy but maintaining a semblance of composure. He didn't press further and soon left without buying anything. I was relieved to see him walk down the street, yet a part of me couldn't shake his unsettling presence. By the time afternoon shadows stretched across my yard, the foot traffic had slowed. Just as I began to pack up the unsold items, I noticed him again. He was walking by slowly, deliberate in his pace, until he stopped at the edge of my driveway. His voice carried with the gentle breeze when he said, "If you ever decide to part with it, I'd pay good money. Real good money." A simple statement, perhaps, yet it resonated deeper, unsettling layers within me. That night, as darkness fell, I double-checked the lock on the closet door where the jewelry box stayed hidden. To my relief, everything seemed untouched. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that this wouldn't be the last I'd hear of him. The following morning dawned with an unsettling find. My back gate left ajar, items from the yard sale strewn about carelessly. Nothing was missing, which itself was puzzling, except a small wooden step stool I'd left near the back door. It's a detail so minor, so easily overlooked, yet it made no sense why it alone was missing. I retraced the steps I knew I'd taken. Had I misremembered, maybe? A trick of the mind from the lingering stress of the previous day? But my neighbor's casual remark later would disrobe my illusions of safety entirely. They'd seen him, the man in the blue jacket, wandering the side yard just before dawn. What could I say to the police? There were no forced entries, no theft, really. Just odd behavior haunting the fringes of my peace. For days, the fear fixed itself stubbornly in the pit of my stomach. Every creak of the floorboards was suddenly suspect. Every shadow outside, a pinprick of dread. I left lights ablaze through the night, as if the brightness could ward shadows from around the perimeter of my home. But the nights passed quietly, perhaps more quietly than I should have wished. 3 days later, as I was putting away a few things, I decided to check the jewelry box one more time. Just a fleeting glance to reassure myself. But there it was, subtly different than before, the lid slightly ajar, its edge casting a thin shadow against the box's rich grain. My heart lurched. I knew I'd closed it, been so careful to keep it just as before. And though the contents seemed untouched, reordered perhaps, nearly imperceptible shifts in placement told a different story. Someone had been inside. Someone had touched what was not theirs to touch. I moved the box to a new hiding place, a spot only I knew existed, within the deepest recesses of a cupboard. I tried to shake off the persistent weight of uncertainty. Yet each time footsteps echoed outside, I felt his presence looming, wondering if maybe he was still there, still waiting. That jewelry box, a tether to memories past, had become a symbol of intrusion, a reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be closed. And in the silence of each subsequent night, I found myself listening, waiting for the sound of footsteps returning once more. Story 3: The Doll. It was a Saturday morning when I felt motivated to delve into the forgotten depths of our new home's basement, a place that always gave me the creeps. My mom was busy envisioning what the interior of the house could become, so it was on me to sort through the mountains of old stuff we inherited. Everything felt coated in a layer of history and neglect. Dust clung to the air. The dampness seeped into everything. Walls echoing with a cold that felt out of place during a humid summer. I tried not to dwell on the eerie vibes as I sifted through boxes of books, mismatched silverware, and a tangle of forgotten trinkets. The bulk of the clutter came from a collection belonging to some distant relative, mostly junk, or so I thought. As I pilfered through it, something kept pulling my gaze. A porcelain doll, outdated and unsettling with 2 chips missing from her painted cheeks. It sat perched on a wooden chair, partly concealed by cobwebs, like a long-ignored warning. Its eyes, some shade of deathly blue, seemed to watch me as I moved. Ignoring the knot tightening in my stomach, I put it on top of the box filled with other collectibles for the yard sale. My mom remarked about it, saying that creepy doll must have belonged to her great aunt, who was known for adorning her home with eerie knickknacks. She shrugged it off, but for me, there was an uneasiness about it. A manufactured doll, but heavy with something unspoken. By the time the sun stretched into late afternoon, everyone had gathered for the neighborhood's annual yard sale. The warmth and friendliness of it all wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. A reprieve from the silent, too-long air of the basement. I laid out the items I hoped would leave our house for good, the porcelain doll included. Oddly enough, It was one of the few things that drew immediate attention. People murmured about its history or shot glances at me, as if to question why the hell I'd want to part with it so hastily. Hours and several dimes richer, it seemed destined to stay with us until a woman in her 40s stopped by, fixated on the doll like it had whispered some intimate truth to her. She didn't glance at anything else, just held it and said she'd give $5 for it. Relieved, I agreed. When I told my mom the next morning, she seemed perturbed but not surprised. Just a line between her brows as she tried to place where in the labyrinthine basement it had lived exactly. I was sure of the spot, though. The doll had a way of inhabiting space like something far darker than plastic and paint. We moved on quickly from the subject, but a faint chill lingered with me, a shadow I chose to ignore. Until it stopped being a choice, until it became something I couldn't just shrug off. It wasn't until Tuesday, coming home from a mundane day at school, that the chills sketched its icy fingers down my spine once more. The house was empty. Mom was at work, and I was left alone, seeking sugar and distraction with some half-hearted attempt at homework. Walking into the kitchen, something caught my eye. Something that didn't belong. At the top of our basement stairs, where no one had stood since the weekend, the doll stood, upright on the landing, facing the door as if daring me to open it and face whatever ghost inhabited its porcelain shell. It was impossible. A weight pressed into my chest and squeezed. I inched closer, unable to keep away, seeing there was a note tied to its wrist. It read, whispered in a tremulous hand, "I belong here." Nausea curdled in my stomach. Panic swarmed my thoughts like bees, each one stinging harder than the last. I backed away, each step feeling like a retreat from the brink of some unknown abyss. I slammed the basement door shut, twisting the lock as if that could silence whatever whispers the doll carried with it. Waiting for my mom to get home felt like forever. The hours draped in an unsettling quiet that seemed to amplify the ticking of the clock. The incident gnawed at me, taunting me each time the seconds slipped away into minutes. I ran through the possible explanations like a desperate litany. Some prank by a neighborhood kid, or maybe the woman met some horrible fate and it came back on its own. But they all fell flat, transparent against the sinister reality. Mom's face steeled at my story, a mask of calm concealing the surge of doubt or fear. Together, we swept through the house, searching for intruders or mischief makers. But nothing seemed off kilter. Nothing felt like an explanation. The doll stood there still, a silent sentinel to its own peculiar mystery. We both knew leaving it alone wouldn't suffice. That same evening, we drove far out of town to a flea market donation drop-off, a place that didn't ask questions and was known for dispatching items both strange and mundane. We left it there, and as we drove away, I didn't dare look back. We vowed not to speak of it again, a pact of shared understanding. The doll never returned physically. In some ways, I moved on and accepted that as the victory it felt like. Mom and I laid the matter to rest outside of words or thought. Yet, the quiet never felt entirely ours again. Sometimes, when sleep came slow and uneasy, I found myself at the top of those basement stairs once more, a realm where time didn't matter. And in it, the doll stood again, waiting, watching, holding its cryptic message close. It's whispered, "I belong here," becoming the night's refrain, a chilling echo that haunted the shadows where the light did not reach.